Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're digging into the life and career of one of the most transformative figures in modern history, all based on what the biographical source material tells us. So how exactly does that happen? It's a pretty incredible story, right? A journey that has completely redrawn the map where business, media, and politics all meet. We're going to trace that path, looking at the key moments that turned a New York developer into, well, a global political force. So here's how we're going to break it down. We're looking at this as a three-act story. First, we'll cover the building of the Trump brand. Then, the disruption of the America First presidency. And finally, his truly unprecedented campaign for a political comeback. You'll see how each act really sets the stage for the next one. All right, let's jump right into Act 1, building the Trump brand. You know, long before he was ever thinking about the White House, that name, Trump, it was already a global brand. It meant wealth, it meant success. But how did that actually happen? Where did it come from? Okay, you've probably heard this line before. It's the famous origin story, the core of that whole self-made man narrative. But the source material we're looking at today, well, it paints a much more complex financial picture of how he got his start. Yeah, and here's the contrast. That $1 million loan? Reports detailed in our source materials suggest his father's financial help was way more substantial. We're talking about the equivalent of $413 million today, reportedly passed his children through, let's just say, dubious tax schemes. That's not just a start, that's a massive launch pad. And you gotta say, he definitely put that backing to work. He started putting his name on these huge, high-profile projects. But the real masterstroke? It was the Woolman Rink in Central Park. The city was fumbling the renovation, and he swooped in, got it done under budget and ahead of schedule. That was a huge PR win that really cemented his public image as the guy who gets things done. But it wasn't all smooth sailing. The reporting also points to some pretty significant financial turbulence. Now, to be clear, he never filed for personal bankruptcy, but 6 of his major hotel and casino businesses did file for Chapter 11 bankruptcy. He famously said he was just using the laws of the country, and that those laws were, in his words, very good for me when it came to renegotiating debt. And then came this. The move that made him an absolute household name. As the host of The Apprentice, he crafted this larger-than-life persona as the ultimate, decisive CEO. Now, the source material says it was highly fictionalized, but man, was it successful. The show and that catchphrase made his brand of power totally inescapable and reportedly earned him over $400 million. Of course, this era also brought some big legal battles. Take Trump University. It was a for-profit real estate program that, according to our source, ended up facing multiple lawsuits alleging it was basically a fraud. The whole thing was ultimately settled for $25 million shortly after he won the 2016 election. So all of that, the real estate, the TV show, the brand, it all comes together here in Act 2, the political disruption. He took that outsider persona he'd spent decades building in business and media and used it to launch one of the most stunning political upsets in modern history. And once he was in office, that America First agenda turned into some really dramatic policy shifts. He delivered on the largest corporate tax cut in U.S. history, took a hardline approach on immigration centered on the border wall, and systematically dismantled regulations, all while pulling the U.S. out of key international deals like the Paris Accord. His presidency was also just defined by historic controversy. I mean, he became the only president in U.S. history to be impeached not once, but twice by the House of Representatives. First for abuse of power related to Ukraine, and second for incitement of insurrection. In both trials, the Senate ultimately acquitted him. Now, this number, it's just staggering. The source material highlights a communication style that was, frankly, unprecedented. Fact-checkers tallied over 30,000 false or misleading statements during his term. This fundamentally challenged and changed the norms of political discourse in America. And that brings us to our final and maybe most dramatic act. This is a period marked by events that are just completely unheard of in American history. And it all sets the stage for his campaign to make a historic comeback. The years after his presidency were an absolute whirlwind. While launching this relentless campaign to get back into power, he was also facing a storm of legal battles. We're talking civil suits where he was found liable for sexual abuse and defamation, all the way to a historic criminal conviction in May of 2024.
And that conviction, wow. In May 2024, being found guilty on 34 felony counts for falsifying business records, that was a singular moment. It made him the first ever American president, past or present, to be convicted of a felony, and it fundamentally altered the political landscape.
And should his comeback campaign succeed, it would be incredibly rare, historically rare. He would be the first president since Grover Cleveland, all the way back in 1897, to return to the White House for a second non-consecutive term. We're talking over a century. So looking ahead to a potential second term, the source material details his proposed signature legislation. The plan aims to make his 2017 tax cuts permanent and boost spending for defense and the border, while also calling for cuts to social programs like Medicaid and SNAP, and rolling back environmental protections by appointing industry figures to the EPA.
His campaign has also been marked by this shifting, high-profile relationship with Elon Musk. I mean, after years of trading insults, Trump famously called him a bullshit artist, the two have formed a kind of tentative alliance for the 2024 election. It's got everyone wondering what role, if any, Musk might play in a potential second administration.
So the crucial point is this. When you step back, the story we've explored shows a figure who has consistently challenged and shattered the established boundaries of business, media, and politics. From real estate to reality TV to the presidency itself, his career leaves us with a profound and lasting question about the future of American institutions.